Almost 14 years ago, Conker's Bad Fur Day released on the Nintendo 64. Then 4 years later, Microsoft and Rare remade it into Conker Live Reloaded. Between the two versions of this game, Conker sold around 1.5 million copies, and even though it wasn't a big-time seller, it drew a cult-like following for the quirky little squirrel and his big adventure with crude humor and platforming. It's just too bad that it has been 10 years since we've seen this little guy, until seeing him reintroduced into Microsoft's Project Spark made by Team Dakota. This wasn't exactly met with great reception, as many people want a complete game sporting Conker. But instead of getting into all that, let's focus on what we did get, and see if it justifies the name Conker carries. If you've already played Project Spark, you should be able to jump right into the adventure of Conker's Big Reunion, where you play as Conker 10 years after the events of Conker's Bad Fur Day, where you're trying to meet up with your friends at his old hangout, the Cock and Plucker. On the other side of things, if you haven't played Project Spark yet, you have to play Project Spark's tutorial before playing Conker, which can take a considerable amount of time. This is where it makes you wish that Conker was sold as an individual package and just using the Project Spark engine. That way you can jump into the game right away. However, once you do start playing Conker, you're met with old faces like Birdie, who plays your tutorial guide, the key you have to chase down, the cash Conker is obsessed with, and of course Chris Seaver returning to the voice of Conker. Even the music by Robin Beanland returns. And this is the thing about Conker's Big Reunion. It feels like Conker, it sounds like Conker, and it is Conker. Sure, it may be in Project Spark, but right away you realize that this is exactly the game you've been waiting for. As you take your first steps onto a context-sensitive button, you'll be taken back to a world filled with nostalgia. It's important to note, though, that Conker's Big Reunion is an episodic adventure, meaning that what we have received so far is very short. In fact, a little too short. The first episode runs about an hour long. In the first world, you will find yourself doing about 3 missions to earn cash so you pay your tabs at the Cock and Plucker. And just like the old Conker, it includes parodies, crude humor, and quirky gameplay. The mission that he pokes fun at Metal Gear Solid was especially fun and actually had me smiling and laughing to myself as he's talking to Birdie, just like Snake would be talking to Otacon. Though sadly, on the other hand, the mission where you were shooting teddies with a gun was especially dull, and considering the game is already short, it's something you don't want to sit through. On the technical side of things, the game looks and feels great. It's surprising on how much this game looks like Conker, and Conker looks better than ever. It's interesting that Team Dakota based Conker's design around the original Bad Fur Day rather than Rare's remake of Live and Reloaded, but with the art direction of Project Spark, it couldn't be any more fitting. That isn't to say it's all good, as it does have some frame rate issues at times, but beyond that, I can't find any complaints with the art direction. And speaking of Project Spark, the one good thing about Conker being in this game is that the community can create their own Conker levels and games. It's interesting as you see the community's own take on Conker, even going so far as remaking levels from the original game. Going against the Great Mighty Pooh was an absolute delight, not only feeling like the original, but showing off what you can do with enough creativity and talent. So with Conker's Big Reunion, it may not be what we asked for, but it's what we got. And it's surprisingly done very well. This is Conker in its truest sense. It's unfortunate that it's just so short though, but luckily there's more to come being the first episode. While I'd prefer Microsoft come out and announce a full Conker game, and with Team Dakota proving their worth, I wouldn't mind them working on a full game if it did happen. But until then, just know that Conker's Big Reunion is a good game even if on the short side. After waiting 10 years, it's a little upsetting turning off the game only an hour in, but in the end, even the small dose was worth it. Conker's Big Reunion, I give a 7.8.